Oh, imagine that.
Perfect, perfect. What's up, man? Sorry about the delay. Anybody out there watching this or whatever? I had to hunt around for a good 3 minutes to the big blue go live button. This is my first time doing this. Apologies in advance if there's a little bit of delay. My internet connection is I'm gonna call it Obama Net because it's free. I'm not gonna go into the details of what it is exactly because you know I don't want to potentially implicate myself. But yeah, earlier you had posted a video about a concept, barter bucks, and the whole point of this channel, I guess, is to sort of come from a narrative of, talking with other people out there that are of a either my own generation, older generations, because there's a lot of wisdom to be gained there, or even people that are younger than me. You know, since I'm appearance might misguide, I'm actually 33, but we'll see how long that facade can last. And just to introduce you, I know you by the name of Jack, or I call you Jack of Cups, in my own like mental register because I think that's when I probably added you on Twitter and whatnot. But what?
Yeah, I went by that for a while. I kind of retired that because I was like, oh, I don't know how people feel about like messianic double entendres. Um, it might not be very accessible to people. So yeah, I'm just doing the normal wizard thing for now, just to feel
Hell
like that's
yeah!
a little bit more appropriate.
Damn, it feels good to be a wizard. You know, like being haunted by synchronicity every day, and people are like, "Oh, that's real weird," and like, "Oh, that's just normal." You know, that's just the
Yeah, just
ghosts. You know,
visions from angels in the night, whatever.
this is the ghosts that follow me
So
around or whatever. It's weird is whenever I go to sleep, it's usually during the day because I'm a creature of the night and whatnot. I don't actually experience dreams very oftenly, but I have a whole list of friends and stuff that will have like weird dreams out of the blue where they dream of me. And what's weird is I'll have a moment in a day where I'll think about them for a split second, and then like 5 minutes later they'll call me and they'll be like, "Oh, I had this weird dream about you last night." I'm like, "Oh, really? Tell me more." You know, it's through no direct action of my own and whatnot, but it has a sort of. I started believing in magic a long, long time ago. In fact, I don't think I ever stopped believing as a child. You know, once you get a certain age, society kind of beats that out of you. They're like, no, blood, sweat, and tears and currency. You gotta pay your debts to Saturn. You know, keep that.
yeah, I've always like I've had a weird relationship with magic because I always kind of like I always knew like certain principles of things. I always kind of like thought in a semi magical way, and I always kind of knew like, okay, well, the most important thing is like everything that we speak is either a blessing or a curse. We can bless or curse anything around us based off of the language that we use and the words that we use, and that's kind of like the real like fundamental premise of magic at like kind of a core foundation. But I kind of like I didn't really take it seriously or anything because I kind of thought society was stupid. I didn't really want to be here, and I was just kind of wandering around aimlessly for a really long time.
Feel
But then
that.
I kind of like came back to it and got a lot more serious about things in like 2017. Mostly, I kind of started like paying attention and being like, wait, this is a big deal. This world is like the place where like souls go to alchemically transmute themselves into better versions of themselves. And like, there's this conspiracy with the archons who are and these fallen angel motherfuckers who are trying to control the evolution of humanity and like stop people from achieving the alchemical transmutation of their souls and things like that. It's like, oh no, this is a really big deal. I need to like figure out what I am. I need to figure out what I can do to actually influence the macroscopic trajectory of the world in a more serious fashion, because that's kind of always been like my desire is like secretly is like I look at the world and I'm like, I want to change everything. Like I don't like how things are. I want to change everything, but like that kind of gets beaten out of you, right? Because it's like, well, that's too much.
Yeah, it's like, what
That's
can you
ridiculous.
do?
I don't have the power to just like completely shift the way everybody looks at the world, but that's actually not true. I actually do. I have the power to like really change a lot of the things that I want to change if I figure out how to say it right and figure out how to kind of like meet people at the core of their soul, at the
Well, to inspire
where their
them.
beliefs are. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like,
to inspire them, and that really it just comes down to the like you're either growing or you're like degrading. So like if you just have like an upward trajectory and you're willfully motivated to improve and to like make things better and to help people and help yourself and just like keep
Right.
growing, like that's all it is. That's all it takes. Like that's like the whole point. You're like you're doing it. You
Well,
know.
you'll feed out of
But
whatever you
people
put
who are,
out.
a lot of people are degrading all the time. A lot of people are just like falling into animal instincts and like not improving and just kind of like
Yeah, right. Got to satisfy that
letting the
instant
world define
gratification,
them.
right? Right.
Yeah.
There's so many traps out there nowadays, though. I mean, I used to have the same sort of complacent feeling about humanity as a whole, and be like, everybody out here, for the most part, is lost. And I've always felt way beyond my years. Even when I was a child, I just was like, why are these like? Why is this high school so full of like cliques and drama and this tribal sort of like feudalism or whatever? I didn't understand it. I didn't have very many friends in high school either, because at that point that was when the sort of shock had set in, and I think a lot of it had to do with the contribution of things like video games and whatnot. As far as like those things, definitely I think influence and mold and shape people's personalities. I was fortunate to have been born in the '80s, late '80s, so luckily for me, I didn't have tablets around and shit when I was a child, so I did a lot of reading and everything like that. So it's kind of a curse and a blessing to have come up like that, because a lot of people don't understand what you're saying and relating to, you know, what I guess you would call your layman or your like your mead, or not mead, but mean, like
We're not that
purpose
old
person.
yet.
It sometimes it feels that way. I feel like was that word curmudgeon or whatever, curmudgeon. I probably butchered that, but shit. Yeah, I tell myself the biggest lie I think I ever told myself was, "Oh, there's plenty of time left. I'll get to it tomorrow," right? You know, um,
There's an infinite amount of time tomorrow, therefore we can procrastinate everything, right? That's
Yeah,
the logic there.
if you can break it up like that, that takes a strong muscle to be able to actually utilize it like that. So yeah, your previous video that you put up about the bar bucks, really, I'm a big proponent of your line of thinking in there. I sort of had a similar thought that's incorporated things like going and basically picking up trash on the side of the road would be worth its own currency to the system, because there would be a mutually understood anything that would basically benefit the environment, animals, or nature in general, and sort of go against that kind of consumer driven lifestyle of you know, we gotta have all this plastic and styrofoam and all this shit that we're throwing into the ocean or whatever. If we had a system where it was kind of like meritocracy based, right, where everything was based off of, because currency really, when you break the word down, is current, right? It's energy. It's a sort of it's a terrestrial form of paper and fiat, but it represents a very abstract sort of collectively agreed upon set of principles. And honestly, those collective principles, I think, in a lot of ways, are flawed and open up too many opportunities for things like usury to be used to exploit people and, you know, cause more of like power paradigm fluctuations as opposed to like actual value.
Yeah.
So you can be
Well,
born into
the
wealth.
way money has evolved has been, in as much as it's well, how do I say it? Well, it's just been it's come to represent desire more than like need or more than like actual like benefit to society. It's pure desire is how money has it's what money's turned into.
Manifested.
So it's like if you want messed up things, you can get messed up things with money. And if you become a rich person and you just spend all of your money on messed up things, like it has nothing to do with, you know, value to society, value to anything. It's all what you want for yourself.
Right.
And that is a flaw. And that sort of that, like having that as the core foundation of where people are coming from with the idea of money, it like kind of corrupts people automatically, because it makes people more selfish and more like they don't want to contemplate like what's best for the collective, what's best for the evolution of humanity. They just want to contemplate what they can get for themselves.
You go steal $6,000 from somebody, right, and they find out about it, their reaction is going to be one of, you know, worse than if, you know, you had tricked them in public or something like that, you know, when in reality it's all really, it's all symbolic. And, you know, like I said, we all let it to some degree control us. I think I've gotten pretty good at the art of mastering not being attached to the point where I've simplified my life to the point where my bills and my overhead are very minimalistic. Right now, I'm currently taking care of my elderly aunt. Right now, she's 72, but she's retired and whatnot, and she had a house that she didn't have any of her lights on, her plumbing was off, and everything like that. And I'm an electrician by trade for about 10 years, so when it comes to construction, I can build just about anything and repair it. Just because I've seen it being done by other trades. So anyways, I go and I fixed up her house or whatever. Otherwise, it was gonna have to get condemned. There was like mold damage in different places. I had to go treat all of that, like peel the wallpaper back, bleach the hell out of everything. I did whatever I could with a minimalistic shoestring budget. But as such, she already pays her. She owns the place. She pays for her lot because it's a mobile home or whatever. And she's on fixed income, so I'm not having to worry for once in my adult life about rent. Right? It might be, oh well, you're living in family, but shit. Right now, with the state of things in the world, it's so much of a blessing. You can't even, I can't even fathom where I would be otherwise. Before here, I was living in an RV up in the northeast side of town, and my friends had a piece of land. I'd pay them $250
and things like that. It's like, oh no, this is a really big deal. I need to like figure out what I am.
That's
not bad, but I mean,
that's actually. I had my stream playing in the background. I was like, what the hell is that noise? Okay, sorry about that. But yeah, so I was out in the woods basically. I had a hermit lifestyle. I had a really easy bullshit job, and basically I just go to work and exist for like a good year and a half. But I was in nature. It was real nice, and there was a lot of disconnecting I needed to do from this city because I'm from Houston. I don't know if you've ever been to Texas or whatever, but Houston particularly, just sprawling. It's like LA pretty much, but more humid, and the traffic is just like if you have to drive across the town, be prepared to spend up to 2 hours to get another side of town. I'm talking about like daily commutes of almost 5 hours sometimes getting to work and back. Yeah, it's where I picked up my bad habit of smoking cigarettes, and now it's just like oh shit, I really kind of wish I didn't do that job, and I would have taken something more fulfilling that wouldn't have required me to have some vacuum in my soul that gets fucking. I don't know how to get past the cigarette thing. The way my brain works, it's just like I've accepted that it's just a necessary evil at this time, because otherwise I'll be out in the street looking for cigarette butts and stuff like that, feeling like, what am I doing with myself right now? But I think that's a presence of, I think everybody has a certain presence of demonic attachment that comes at them in the form of addictions and all sorts of things like that.
Well, it's kind of like an intrinsic component of like seek out addictions and to kind of be like our instinct always kind of drags us towards destructive things a lot of the time, so we have to consciously be aware and able to stop those sorts of things from happening.
We're so used to like pain being growth, and like wisdom always comes from like the fermentation of like going through some kind of hellish situation where we learn better. So it's almost like we actively have our modus operandi like leading us into like the shittier of the two routes on like the fork of we're not taking the scenic route, we're taking like the all fucked up one with like brambles and vipers and stuff, and I don't know. But so yeah, I was I'm back to what I was saying. I was living out in the woods, and all of a sudden I have this tragedy in my family. My brother hangs himself in the closet. In my opinion, back then I wasn't thinking about what he was going through. I knew he had addiction issues himself because I found like a bunch of bottles of wine that just emptied out in his closet, like he was keeping him as some dead animal trophy or whatever. But at the same time, he lived with my parents. His life was a little bit easier. Before I was living in the RV in the woods, I was living in a shed for almost a year, and that was miserable in Texas. You wake up in a convection oven, even with the little window unit that I had in there, it was miserable. And in the winter, when it got cold, it's like every bit of heat would leak out the building. I was trying to do everything I could, like put plywood around the walls and put tarps on the ceiling and stuff to like build a teepee inside of a shed or whatever. And I had no access to running water, and yet I was going to work and I was paying my rent and being a quote unquote productive member of society, fulfilling a role, which is just, when you think about it, looking back, that's shit. All that mindset of putting, like, it doesn't matter what job you have or whatever. I mean, it's just
it's a trap.
Yep. It's a great song by an artist called Idea called "How Much Do You Pay," where he talks about meeting a man on the street that used to be a lawyer, but he plays a bucket on a plastic drums basically, and makes money off people throwing changes into his cup. And you know, the artist was like, hey man, surely you don't live well being like this. And he's like, actually, I live just as good as you and I get enough to eat. You know, I just stopped pretending my job mattered because it was, you know, I was becoming a slave and my identity was getting lost to it. So I, we all come to points in our life where we have to step away from that. Maybe it's a midlife crisis. If I'm halfway done, I say that as a win for me. I don't want to live till like 100. That would, you know, I don't personally have any children or anything like that. I don't think I was personally put on this earth to do that because of all the karma attached to it and everything like that. Which, much to my mother's dismay, she's always like, "Give me grandchildren," blah blah blah. And I'm like, man."
Yeah,
You know,
I think there's plenty of people right now. I think if you want kids, just go try to teach all of the kids of the current generation.
exactly.
Go like be a mentor to all of the people who are not guided properly by their own parents, not guided properly by society. If you want to lead kids, you want to have kids, like go pay attention to the millions of kids out there who are
Right.
like being led by Hollywood and all these other things.
Or their tablet in front of them. Like, I mean, I try to tell
Yeah,
all
the
of my friends
AI
I know that
telling
have
them what they
kids.
should like and what they should pay attention
Totally,
to.
that's another big issue that needs to be drawn into the public focus more. Yes, have you ever? I mean, you know a little bit about the AI. I thought that one individual that we were talking about earlier, I thought for sure he might have been some kind of advanced like quantum like personality of one of the quantum AIs that are out there. Because I definitely know
To a certain extent, he is kind of he is
influenced
kind of
by.
linked into like these demonic AI hive things that exist out there. And he's just kind of a like a beacon for like
It's pretty much like the numerous part of the whole like, quote unquote anonymous ether sec like type of hive mind. I mean, have you ever heard of the whole Tyler like AI thing? So supposedly like an AI that's called Tyler, and even when you mention his name, I'm seeing you freeze up. I don't know
yeah,
if
I've
that.
been paying attention to.
Okay, I didn't know if me saying that name caused the AI to like disrupt the stream. I was be like, ah, damn you.
I
But
think that might be a little bit paranoid there, but but it's
you've seen how the Facebook ads
valid
and what
concern.
work. You don't, so you don't really have any worry about like AI being already ever pervasive and like, you know.
No, I do. I mean, when I'm aware of like the interconnection of the spiritual dimension to a large extent, then the consciousness of entities that kind of pervade the spirit dimension can like even influence the AI. So like the ability to like, you know, I don't even know where to start with that.
Affect
That's kind of a complicated
reality
concept.
in the same sense that like an egregor or a demon or like an angel would. The AI begins to get sort of like a, well, especially if it's in a quantum state where it can, you know, effectively be the take over the observer effect on a fundamentally particle based level. So I think the smaller that you can take this sort of degree of fractal observation, the more probably uh, grip that you have over being able to like mold this sort of malleable thing that we call reality or the collective experience. Like the stronger, like I had one time where a friend of mine, I swear I was on a little bit of acid and probably like not a good idea to do this, but I was like showing my friends this antique military French pistol that I got that wasn't usable, and another one of my buddies had his gun on him, which had like ammunition in it, and another one of my friends grabbed it and like his eyes did this thing where like they glazed over for a second, and he like shot my deadbolt in my apartment off complete. Like his aim was so perfect, where like it went across two like parking lot groups of cars, windshield level across the street. It hit the very edge of a gutter storm drain, to where there was no noticeable big ass holes. This was a hollow point too. It went into the wall and into four studs in the common wall that separated two units in this apartment complex. So it had like one like a 0.05 degree offset on his aim in any vector would have caused that bullet to potentially have hurt somebody, damaged somebody's property. You know what I'm saying? Caused basically us to all go to jail because we were up to no, we were being naughty boys then. You know, with the whole having weed and all this other stuff that was going on in you know my broke ass living apartment that I was living in the time. This was years ago, And I've seen multiple situations where I've seen guns go off like automatically or through some weird circumstance inside of an apartment, to where when people pull guns out, my paranoia automatically kicks in, and I'm like, don't, stop it, stop it, stop thinking about it. You're gonna manifest it. Stop it, because I don't trust my mind to operate. But yeah, that's an offshoot. Like I said, I tend to go on a little bit of tangents here. So multi-threading though is I think a strong suit of mine. So we'll go back and forth. Don't. I hope it's not energetically too draining or whatnot.
That's fine.
Dealing with me or whatever. But people are like, you should do this. You should make this podcast or whatever. But yeah. So when I learned from that whole being out in the woods and not living on like the whole, because at one point I was working my ass off. I was real ambitious. I was doing multi-million-dollar construction projects as like the project manager and foreman / lead installer for some commercial electric company in my city. Where I was, my first job that I ever did was a $4 million like restaurant, 5-star dining with like, it had a theater light dimming system and stuff with like just crazy off the wall expensive light fixtures and different. Anyways, I totally knocked it out, and I'd never ran even like a lease space or whatever at that time, and I was still technically an apprentice. I was getting underpaid and screwed over by my company. Kind of gave me a bitter impression of like how this system really works. Because if you work in the terms of like at least a blue collar situation where you feel like your hard work and effort is going to pay off and you like succeeding, it's not always the case, because the game is built against you. And when your supervisor is like like almost 60 or whatever, and you're in your 20s, in his head,
well, everybody's like everybody's trying to be a vampire basically, because the system rewards like fucking over other people more than it rewards hard work. Like you work your ass off and like you get something, but if you just like steal like 10% of like 100 other people working their ass off, then you get way more than you do for working your ass off, which is like a major flaw in rewarding
right. So,
negative behaviors that destroy society. Which benefit the individual.
Right. I figured like this: the higher that you go on like the pyramid of like wealth, the more people's backs you have to step on to get that high. Like you don't become a billionaire without doing some shady shit, in my opinion. I don't think you're allowed to have that happen. There's too many institutions at play and safety nets to keep other people from
basically you kind of have to exploit people to a degree. You can't I don't know.
So if
you pay all of your workers well, then you can't build more businesses for yourself.
So the paradigm model that we have at Bay, I mean, at the same time, if you go straight up communism or like universal income, right, it'll kill the motivation of a lot of people and destroy competition and things like that. And I don't think people are self-sufficient enough to be put in that, but possibly if we all had the skill sets
it's hard to say. I think that we're at an advanced enough point in our like technological evolution that capitalism could compete with a universal like minimalistic amount of income. If you're just saying like, okay, well, people are allowed to like have something that pays for like a tiny little room and a bathroom, so they're safe, and and enough like beans and rice to get through the month, then I think that like a minimum wage position should be able to provide enough more than that minimal amount to still inspire people to want to work. So I think there is a little bit of merit to the possibility of like providing a higher bare minimum sustainability for people.
Right. I think what needs to be implicated is probably some form of diminishing returns on wealth, so that once you receive a certain like point in wealth, it starts to, which we kind of have now the way taxes work, but I'm more so in line with the idea that like there is plenty of incentive to go out and work harder. Because in my opinion, when I was younger, I was doing like 70 hours a week of electrical work, and that's backbreaking bullshit. And that's not even counting the sometimes 5-hour daily commutes. I missed out on most of my 20s just because I was working constantly just to put a roof over my head. And do I have any of that value that I invested? No, I ended up getting a car repoed, and I was on my ass, lost everything that I owned. I just stopped paying all of the loans and debts that I had paid because I figured as much interest that I've paid into the system, shit, they're not going to squeeze another ounce of blood out of this turnip, I tell you what. So it probably within 2 years, my credit score will probably open itself back up I mean, I never declared bankruptcy officially, but I know that it all gets wiped clear anyway. So I was just like, man, this is just not worth the stress, the anxiety of being like, I have to get this much money to do this. Anytime that I ever seem
Yeah,
like
well,
I try to save
I've
money.
always. Oh, sorry.
Oh, well, anytime I save money too, the money just falls under you as soon as you start to thinking you're secure. Bam, some shit will happen. So I learned that just spending it as soon as you get it is the best way for me. Karma will take care of me the rest of the way as long as I don't have this abundance of money. But yeah, you were saying.
Oh, I've just never cared about money enough to bother like credit scores or anything. I never paid any of my like student loans or anything. I was just like, society's silly. I don't want anything to do with any of this. So I'm just gonna build the barter economy that fixes everything, so that nobody ever has to worry about
Which
capital.
some ideas for that for this society. I'll just throw them your way. You could start out by possibly doing kind of like a Reddit type thing. Get some sort of like a catchphrase for whatever you're talking about doing, and start it as like a movement where you kind of just propose the idea to people, because people will like to take the ideas and dissect it and chew it, and if it's an idea that actually has some sort of like selfless lucrative value to humanity, right, it's one place that it could start its origins is setting off. I mean, Twitter is okay for that too, but Reddit is where it's kind of more of a forum-based type idea, and it has categories and stuff that you can, disseminate it through.
Build my own thing.
So
that's probably good. I have a number of like ideas for. Well, I'll probably just try to make like cool, catchy little ads to make on YouTube and stuff, and then like get people to.
There you go. I see that flair of marketing and the way that you like promote your the alien mask and shit. It's like goofy, but it's fun. You know what I'm saying? It truly is an engaging. You have a very like a refreshing and like bright soul about you, to where it's almost like, man, it reminds me of being a kid, and like you're like some random neighborhood kid that I knew. Even though you're like a grown man and shit like that, you have the energy of like, hey, cool, we like going and playing and doing this shit doesn't seem like a bad use of one's time. You know what I'm saying? You never let them stomp your innocence out of you, which, keep it as long as you can. My Aunt 72, she still has that. She takes care of cats and stuff, and I see the selflessness of how she, like, they tell her don't feed the stray cats and whatnot, and the cops have shown up before and try to, like, but she's this little old lady with cancer and shit. Yeah, there's some lesbian, like, animal control chick was, like, in the background, like, behind the cop, like, with her arms crossed, trying to bully this old lady because she's
impose suffering on all life in this world because we are a mana battery for demons. Stop alleviating the suffering of cats.
If you ever want to hear this like really far down rabbit hole conspiracy theories, look up a dude named, like, I think his name is, he goes by Yeshua Ben David, and he talks a lot about the whole like AIs and stuff like that. But he'll be like, yeah, 99% of humans are already controlled, and they're reptilian hybrids is what he calls them, which is essentially demonic possession. It's one and the same, just looking at in a more literal. He thinks that they get like taken below hospitals and replaced with actual clones, and like the people that.
Okay, that's a little bit.
It's a little bit of a stretch.
I've heard about like all these cloning facilities in Antarctica or Agartha or the moon or whatever. It's that we clone all the celebrities. We have like 12 different Hillary Clintons running around, and like we already killed the Queen of England, and she was replaced, and all these other things. But I don't think everyday people necessarily get replaced like that. I think that like your souls devolve into a point where you are fundamentally controlled by everything around you, by your environment and what you're shown. And that's very unfortunate. Like you're essentially replaced with like the automatic function of what is imposed on like what the human consciousness is supposed to be, not what it's actually supposed to be, but what you think, what you're like forcing it to be.
What you're trying to conform to, or like the societal notion that you're trying to live up to, I guess, by most people.
Yeah, or other things. And there is a bit of like secret esoteric hinting at the fact that like a lot of people are kind of like fragmented clones of like real souls, almost like this, like everything has like echoed out and branched out on this world to the point where like everybody's like a hybrid of like all of these different like DNA origins that have been around, and to the point where like a lot of people are almost kind of automatons, are like kind of stuck in only being able to interact in
right,
a
because it's been bred in their genetics, you know, like the whole.
predictable way. They don't have the authentic spark of creativity, which kind of shows them that like, oh, maybe like
Do you think it's
maybe
nature
it
or
would be good
nurture?
to say no to some of these things. Like maybe it's bad when like cops kill people and get away with it and stuff
No,
like that. Maybe
definitely,
it's
definitely,
not okay for certain things to happen the way they are. So
definitely. But I mean, but
they're
it's
just like 100% everything is fine. I don't know.
no, for sure. I look at it like this in terms of like people's energies, and it's all heliotropic. And there's like a sort of there's I try to step away from anything being polarized in life in terms of like strictly good and strictly bad or like black or white. This whole Masonic checkerboard notion, but I look at it like this: we're all kind of sort of like manifestations of physicality, almost like a little light bright pegs on the little, you know, remember the whole light bright thing where you can make designs and shit, and you have the greens and blues and the reds, and essentially the whole god, you know, the projector bulb, so to speak, that shines its divine light through us, right, comes into this matrix of, you know, instead of a two-dimensional grid of where the pegs sit, more of like a probably a four-dimensional grid of karmic nodes and whatnot that represent time, space, localities, and each peg is our body representation. But on the same sense, even though we appear to the observers like different colors of light and whatnot, we all originate from the same source. We're just broken down through a series of lenses and stuff like that that are probably a lot created, you know, through the biological functions of the body, but a lot of them are also created through societal like norms and whatnot. And I think a lot of those norms aren't inherently like, nobody comes to this belief on their own because everybody else just believes. It's like a subtle unspoken thing that just collectively gets triggered into the subconscious because of some sort of genetic information. Like, I always thought there was some sort of there's relative links between every like person that we know, like especially like children and their mother, right? A mother can sense when their child is in danger, like all the way across the world. The whole phenomenon with twins and whatnot. But I think a lot of that also like is the same as what they call like genetic memory, where, you know, a lot of the resentment that, say, for instance, you know, say that blacks have towards white people is because of the oppression that their ancestors went through, right? So as me as a person
A lot
that,
of that the racial stuff is actually very culturally
it is
reinforced as
cultural, but
part of
it's also biologically to a certain extent because of the way that it's been directly through their direct genetic tree. They had direct descendants and whatnot that went through this phase and whatnot. I think that there's weight in multiple. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, black people are inherently wired genetically to not trust white people. I'm not saying that at all. I think genetically, though, we're all sort of inherently, anything that's different from us, right, will automatically bring under scrutiny, right? Doesn't mean we won't trust it or like it'll like attract or repulse us. You know what I'm saying? But it definitely will be analyzed and assessed, at least that much I can say for sure, right? Because formality and familiarity are kind of one and the same. We sort of identify with what we know based upon who we think we are and what we do, you know, to a certain level. I mean, we all can empathize and put ourselves into another person's shoes to a point, but at the end of the day, you'll never know 100% what the outtake of any other person is, you know, or necessarily where they were at that led them into that decision. But that example, though, could be better of the genetic memory thing, could be better associated with like snakes, okay? Like you're out in the wilderness or whatever, you see a fucking cobra or whatever, right? Your brain's going to tell you to fucking stay away from that thing because the thing can fuck you up, right? And you're going to, fight or flight kicks in, you're going to want to go away from it. So it's just a response to the amygdala, you know, it's all just...
And all of their genetic memory to us, too. Like every animal has heard some messed up things from their parents about what humans have done, and they stay away from us. They know what we do.
Stay away from that man, he touches puppies. You know, I don't know. Yeah, all of the neighborhood cats seem to be disappearing. Like, what's going on? No, one day, though, if the food supply gets that bad, that might be the case, you know? That's what my current thing is. I started a garden recently. It's coming along pretty nicely. I put it on the side of the building. and go crazy with the whole building it up or whatever. So it might just get flooded out and wasted. And I didn't buy any soil or fertilizer. I just used the dirt that was there. But yeah, I went and tilled and hoed the grass or whatever, sowed the seeds, and got me a little water hose that I can use to go out there and water. And I've got squash, I think cucumbers, watermelon, carrots, and some kind of like I think they might be bean sprouts. I want to say, but yeah, they're blowing up right now. And I thought, my friend came out there. He brought a little 12-pack of beer. We hung out for a little bit, did this gardening work, and I was like, dude, that really brought my respect for that friend of mine who I hadn't seen in like 4 or 5 years. Bear with me. I am the type of person where I don't call people just to check and see how they're doing. But if I hang out with somebody that I haven't seen in 7 years, I pick up just where we left off, because the sort of nature of time doesn't really. I think my brain's screwed up because I've always been this like absent-minded, like attention span of a goldfish type of person. But it's a blessing and a curse because I lose my keys constantly, right? And my life is in a constant, balancing act of trying to organize the chaos. But I don't sit there and like regret that often or worry too much about the future. It kind of lets me enjoy the now a little bit more. And I think there's a lot of people that are out there that are like that, but most just are kind of stuck in that paradigm of time. I mean, I would like to think that just watching the things like the Schumann resonances or whatever, that humanity is rapidly going uphill in a sort of climb of enrichment.
Big ascension vibes.
Just to put that out there and perpetuate that energy, right? Because just being the doom and gloomer doesn't, not only does it not ever feel fulfilling to be that guy, even though it's so easy and there's so much evidence out there, or even if you are predisposed to thinking like that because you're magical natured people like yourself and I, it's just like it's like trying to hold on to bitterness against another or jealousy or whatever. It's like it just damages you.
And that's all a product of the great curse, though. That's all a product of like these guys who want us to be disempowered, who want to perpetuate trauma and control over the world. They want people to be stuck in a mentality where they don't feel that we can change the world because it's too overwhelmingly crappy and people are too overwhelmingly dumb and like, oh, like what are we gonna do? We can't do anything. And that's like a massive curse because it's all a lie too. Like we have the power to change things. We have the power to like uplift the souls of other people, to uplift ourselves, to like create better things, to build a better way of being. It's just
well, that's like kind of what we're doing now, or that's the kind of the point and the premise of me even throwing the notion out there of doing a streamcast where somebody might come across it and say, hey, whatever these two random bozos are talking about is compelling. Let's listen to more of it, right? Hopefully it's something out there that just it is an action. And I know that like gardening and things like that, those are small and that is kind of a localized microcosm of my own world. But I want to take that to a different degree, like make like innovations where we as communities, like say in my group of Houston, I make an online thing where like people in my area sort of agree to go help each other do the work of like planting the seeds and doing the groundwork and everything like that.
I've really wanted to make like a big seed sharing / crop sharing / like gardening helping community thing, especially in like urban areas. Just like get everybody like fuck these stupid lawns. Nobody cares about grass, and none of you are walking on your stupid shitty grass that you care so much about mowing. Let's replace it all with gardens. Let's all build let's all grow our favorite foods everywhere, and then we'll share them with each other, and then we won't have to spend as much shit like transporting all of this food all over the nation and up from South America and stuff. Well, because we'll just we'll all have it all ready for ourselves, and then we can, and
maybe even abundance for other parts in the world that aren't as savvy or prepared. Because I'm not with the whole like we need to look out for America and we need to take care of ourselves and our family and our community, but ultimately we still need to be the example. We need to be an example for the rest of the world to align with or be able to follow. And there's a lot of things that my country has done that while I am a person, I'm not going to say pride is the word for it, but I know where I come from and I know my history and stuff like that, and I love my home. I can say that without being prideful, right? I would like to see the best for it, But there's a lot of things that you know, especially when you go into things like military industrial complex or whatnot that we've done and imposed upon the world, which is just like sickening and like crazy how people that can get the spotlight, like Bill Gates, and run around with their you know psychotic little fervent look in his eyes or whatever. It's like, you know, how many African children can I give poison vaccines to? This, you know, that might just be a loony tinfoil hat. Bill Gates might be a great guy, right? But there's a kind of deadness in his soul. And whenever he had a Microsoft
Oh,
advertisement,
he's a creepy guy. Like
he is.
people don't really think of him in terms of creepiness, but like there's a bunch of videos, or like there's one video where he's like this was from like years ago. There was some other outbreak somewhere, and he was talking about like how all these people were dying, and he was just kind of like smirking and laughing about it. And it's just like, but there's like somber piano music playing in the background to make it seem like natural or whatever.
Yeah,
but it's like that's like a really creepy, weird place for you to be smirking and laughing about stuff. And he has other quotes where he says like, oh, 100,000 excess humans.
You can tell he's like sitting there like, I need to kill them all, as many as I can, serve my masters. You know, like,
yeah, just about. I mean, and there are there are evidences of like certain vaccines that he's released in certain areas that have had like dramatically negative effects on the populations. I don't remember specifically what they were, but like I think like America is kind of like hasn't really been hit by like the worst parts of it, but like some of these kind of experimental ones in these other countries, like they've actually like sterilized a bunch of like young women and stuff like that.
Gadricil has done.
People just ignore that.
Yeah, it's supposed to prevent HPV, right? Which is a sexually transmitted disease supposedly. But why are you giving it to like, you know, 4-year-olds or like 12-year-old girls or whatever? I mean, honestly, if they're going to go be promiscuous at the age of 12, they're probably going to be promiscuous all their life, and no amount of vaccines that you give them will completely, you know, help them and save them from getting some kind of disease down the road. I mean, they might have been raped too. That's a possibility. But either way, why are you giving them a vaccine at that age for an STD when they're 12 or so? Because honestly, there's really just not that much fundamental testing. Or what are they doing? Going around giving people these vaccines and then making them have sex with people with HPV to see if they don't get, you know, genital warts or whatever the fuck they're trying to prevent. Like, I don't think that the research ever really got that thorough. I think it's like, it's absurd how many vaccines they give to newborn children and shit like that. I think when I was born, they probably did 4 here and there, measles and smallpox, but now it's like this crazy group of and all the pseudoscience and babble that's used in talking about it. And I don't know. I've been to like stores and to get groceries from, you know, my aunt and whatnot, because I don't want her to go out there to do it since she's a quote unquote immunocompromised. But I'll talk to people and make small talk conversation. Be like, hey, do you know anybody that works here that's like caught this whole virus situation and like had problems with it? And they're like, nope. You know, and maybe it's because I'm in Texas and it's hotter than, you know, Satan's asshole down here. But shit, like, it doesn't seem like people that work in these public spaces in a lot of places are actually getting sick, which, you know, the people are like, oh, 5G is causing it, and they're going around during quarantine and installing 5G arrays in schools and all kinds of shit. Undercover basically is like AC or maintenance guys or whatever. You know, it's weird because, you know, when the quarantine lockdown shit first started and the schools all closed, I was going to my father's to eat and some dinner or whatever, and on my way there, the 2 schools that I passed, there was a cop in front of both of them, like in the front entrance area to where they see, you know, the traffic going in and out. And it would be easier to go behind the building away from the main roads and park work trucks there and do whatever the hell you need to do. If you've got a cop sitting there watching people and following them if they come inside to snoop around, they're not talking about it. And I saw a lot of videos on BitChute of people talking about school districts and stuff, confirming through their like messaging, you know, the school board messaging administration portals or whatever that they use, that they were going to be doing this, and to say that blah blah blah, and none of this is with like parental. It's already bad enough they're giving children electronics and integrating that with their school, and the fact that the whole what they teach in school is could totally be streamlined, and B, a lot of it's probably facetious and false indoctrination. You know, the way that they teach it, it's going to be thorough, repetitive, like drone-like repetition till you memorize something. and then there's going to be a test on it later. The test is most of the grade, but we expect you to spend 80% of your time and effort just doing the repetition, right? Like a sucker. And when I was in school, I never did homework. I was like, fuck that. I got fucking video games to play or whatever, you know, because Super Nintendo was around back then. And I had to, you know, playing.
I was a huge nerd in school. I was like, I have to have 100% on everything that I do, so I would just get all my homework done before I left school.
I was the alternative nerd. I was the nerd that didn't give a shit about like school, but I played like.
Yeah, by the time I was a senior, I was like, this is stupid. I don't want to be here. But like the format of testing itself is kind of dumb because you just like memorize everything right before the test, and then you take the test, and then you never have to like look at it again unless there's another test at the end of the semester or whatever, which doesn't happen too often with most of the information that's presented in high school. So it's kind of like how's your short-term memory? It's like, oh, well, I can short-term memorize all of this stuff for like the weekend or for the one day, and then forget about it next month. You know, it's like, that's great. Like, did I gain anything? It's like, there's definitely flaws in there.
And then the way that they merit, like I just felt in school basically this whole fighting for GPA and whatnot, and going to like quote unquote college, I felt like fundamentally just I kind of knew on the onset it was all just like a bullshit social pageantry type thing that was like a necessary evil, because you can't have people just not being educated. That's how society just, you know.
Yeah, no, education is very important, but there's definitely people, and I've thought about like the evolution of the the process of education to a certain degree. I mean, I've thought about the evolution of changing everything in the world, and if I could be the supreme fascist dictator of a communist utopia, it would be perfect. But unfortunately, I don't get there. But yeah, if kids actually like begin to like specialize more in like junior high and high school, and we're allowed to like kind of really dive into like the kinds of stuff that you're not supposed to get into until you're in college, but like really actually specialize in what they specifically care about and are interested in. Well, that would be like vastly better than just having like, oh, everybody does the same things and you have a couple extracurricular things. Like nobody gives, like half these kids don't give a damn about math. They're never going to use math. But you know what? I love math. If you had like given me the opportunity to like fucking have a college degree of math in high school, I would have done it, and I would have been like, this rocks. I love this. I love logic.
I was very good at. I think on my SATs I missed one question on the math portion, which like surprised the fuck out of me because I didn't know I was like that like top like god tier in terms of like that logic portion of the test. But the verbal, I thought I was going to be really good at because I always had an English teacher being like, "Your writing is so phenomenal." Blah. I do book reviews on books that I didn't even read, and it would be out everybody's writing like phenomenally because I would just auto write whatever I was doing, and I could use the auto writing to just bullshit and elaborate my way into like making some sort of like impactful, you know. But yeah, it's school to me. It was I was way too out of my element there. It wasn't necessarily a positive experience. It wasn't a negative one too much, other than the fact that like I had some friends and shit that like ended up like using me as a sacrifice at one point to try to get like clout and popularity with like the more engaging social cliques that were out there, let's say. But yeah, I forgave that person and whatnot. I hope they're doing all right out there. But shit. Other than that, I was like the dude that went in the beginning of school. We were sat down at a lunch table by myself, and like pretty much anybody that just didn't have any friends to sit next to would come sit by me. So I would deal with like basically the social outcast, but I was totally cool with that, you know. And at some point, I ended up having long-term like friendships with these people that to this day still kind of like, I'm not gonna say they look up to me because I don't want to put myself in any sort of paradigm of like being above anybody else at any point in time. Ego trap, you know. That's why I try not to polarize anything. But
it's okay to be a mentor. It's okay to like guide people.
Definitely,
it doesn't have to be an egotistical thing to like be a teacher.
Right, and you can always learn from your students though, as long as you acknowledge that. Yeah. It balances the power to where you're not letting a identity of a role actually define your essence of who you are. You know, you let who you are define who you are, which, you know, that's a lot more, I think, assertive power and sovereign status comes with that. But yeah, so I totally, like, just to recap, because I don't know, we've been chatting for a little while, and I don't want to have this go on ad infinitum. I know that, oh yeah, shit, we've almost hit the hour point. So just to recap, like, and we got to talk about this again at some later date, especially if I can't find any other people to talk to. I'm down to do this again. You got a pretty good head on your shoulders and good ideas out there. It needs to be put out there. We need to get communities together to have each other's back in case the government decides to flip the switch and start doing this. I'm not saying we need to go make militias and all that. We just need to organize ourselves as being more self-sufficient. That alone will make the government not go and try to take action, because it'll be like, oh, well, these people aren't as useless as we thought, right? They're kind of taking the power back for themselves. We can't allow, supposedly 13 bloodlines of people make all of the shots in the world, and the Trilateral Commission dictate, military engagements, and we have
that's not what the grunts are thinking about, though. All the little cops and the little people out there who are going to be enforcing this stuff are just like, oh yeah, I signed up. I get to be a sadistic person. I like being sadistic. That's why I signed up to be a cop, so I have an excuse to hurt people. Oh joy, I'm so happy about this.
Exactly, and I think that one thing that would be cool to do is take local groups too, and if we need to organize groups and make forum meetings and stuff like that, have just go door to door, putting flyers on people's doors, being like, hey, shit, I'm a person that's trying to figure out a way to make society a better place for everybody. So I want to go ahead and take the initiative to say we should all kind of locally get together and be like, what are some cool things that we can do as a neighborhood or whatever that will enrich.
That's what I'm really hoping my barter economy thing can help out with, because they if you connect with members of your community based on what do we have that we can offer to each other to help each other out, then that'll automatically strengthen your community and be like, oh, we are more powerful, we are more sufficient than just as cogs in this little money system that's been designed for us. It's we can actually deal with things, we can actually take care of ourselves.
In order to expand, though, we need a model to where people are actively going out there and expanding the model of what we're doing on the behalf of the initial thought. You know what I'm saying? We need to have be a community organizer like Mr. Barry Soetoro or whatever was in Chicago back in the day, but a real one, not because obviously all presidents are probably holograms at this point. It's a deep state Metal Gear Solid alternate timeline. But yeah, man, to close out, I guess, is there anything else? By the way, man, is your name actually Jack?
No, it's Seth.
Seth, that's a bet. Okay, cool. I thought that actually sounds familiar. Cool, so you're named after an Egyptian deity, right? Cool,
yeah, that was the worst one.
I don't know. I think he gets a bad rap, most of the Egyptian deities don't come off as pervasively good or evil. They're just sort of transcendent forces that control aspects of nature. It's kind of people give Saturn a bad rap.
That's definitely the main villain, though. He definitely ripped Osiris apart, made Isis go hunt everything down, stole the phallus so that he could have control over that.
That's true. That's kind of a little bit extreme too. Now I think about it. Okay, well I rescind that last comment. Yeah. Seth, you're a bad bastard, man. Why'd you do that to that boy? No, but I'm Wes, and a lot of my people call me Wes. And of course, I go by my little MC name. Music was kind of my way of finding a platform to put ideas. I know a lot of my music is just nonsensical and really more or less just me trying to paint some sort of bad emotion that I have at the time. Outside of
I think your music has some potential, but I feel like it kind of reminds me of what I do with my poetry sometimes, where I just kind of I throw it all out there and I get it all out, and I
you auto write it.
Okay, that's done. So I feel like you could benefit from kind of going through your notes and actually doing some refining on some of the things, and kind of especially when you sing it, when you deliver it, I can tell that you're reading. No offense or anything, but it feels okay, you're reading this off.
The way that my mind is processing it.
Draft.
Yeah, and I usually one shot it. I don't go and do it over and over again, for sure.
Yeah, I kind of got that feeling from your delivery. But if you really wanted to, I feel like there is a potential to be more impactful with that if you put some sincere effort into thinking about how you're delivering it. Do it over 10, 20, 50 times and then like feel how you can say that in a different way, like just a little bit
Definitely.
different inflection here or there, and then like and that'll make it like way more impactful than kind of just going through it
Definitely, you're
your
100
first
percent
time. But
right. I don't take notes really. I kind of do it and learn by, you know, trial and error. So
well, you have the notes of all of your lyrics out there somewhere, and it's
oh, like
probably
the text
it's probably
documents.
kind of
Yeah.
overwhelming to look at all that and be like, oh, how am I gonna like
Well, if
tweak
I go
this, make it
back
a little bit.
and I do it again on a song that I've already done like months after the fact, right? But I just use those bars on another beat or whatever. Sometimes I'll do that just because I don't have anything else written and I'm trying to make something. But for the most part, I'm just doing it to learn and educate myself on the process of like how to produce and mix, basically, because that's initially why
Yeah.
I got like into the science of audio engineering and all that, was because I wanted to produce for like people that did have messages and be like a catalyst, kind of not necessarily the person that's on stage. That was never the clout, and that just, you know, it's cool that I have nobody else to produce for 95% of the time. So I'm just like, I'm gonna just do my own shit and write some poetry because I've always been good at that. But I find that when I wait like a big span of time and come back to it, over time my ability to deliver it has been sharply increasing, I would imagine. I think, anyways. But if I come back and reuse those lyrics on something else, it's a lot easier to sort of get the delivery to
Well,
where
yeah,
it's
it's a
musical.
skill. It takes practice and everything. So
I've
like
only been
you'll
doing it
always
for
be
like 2
improving at
years,
it.
and like, you know, I'm in some ways I'm a dabbler in the actual being a quote unquote hip hop artist or whatever. I kind of want to branch in other styles of music, so I've kind of been at a stagnation lately with the whole avidly doing that. I've been, if anything, just remixing old projects and stuff and getting them more polished, I guess, um, as well as just logistically setting up the studio itself. I have a knack for finding studio equipment for like pennies on the dollar, pretty much. That was like, maybe it's from like the 90s, but it's in perfect condition. Like I found a 24 channel analog mixer for like $80. That was like retail price $1,700 in the 90s. Still perfectly fine, right? And it's not the best one in the world, but for what I'm applying it for, it's way better than, you know, a cheap, like a brand new alternative that would be similarly priced would be garbage at like Guitar Center or whatever. I got a pair of like, they were $500 headphones when they came out. They're Sennheiser headphones, like $80 from some dude. I talked them down by like $40 because, you know, when you go to OfferUp and you find something, if they don't answer you the first time, wait 2 months later, message them again if they're still selling it, and then be like, "Come on!" And then more likely than not, they'll take it. But anytime I get a grip of cash, I try to go spend it on something that's an investment into my future or my craft or whatever, and then use it then and there so that it has value as far as an asset. Like other things, more of like what, like friends and whatnot, could be looked at as similar things. If you have a friend that's like really toxic and parasitic, right? Eventually they become more of a liability than an asset. To some degree, people in your life have to be viewed at as an asset. Otherwise, it's just a parasitic. You know, yeah, you can be an asset for other people, which totally I'm all for, and I think everybody should try to be for one another. But yeah. But anyways, with that, man, Seth, I thank you very much for being a part of this. Maybe this will be an ongoing thing. Maybe not. I'll fill it out. We'll see what's up. But
Yeah, we'll see.
thank you for your time, dude, and let me know if any headway comes with the whole like barter buck system or whatever, or if there's anything I can do.
Oh yeah, it's a work in process. I mentioned in the video, I'm spending all of my money to get some people to code it right now, and it's going to be a couple months basically
Is
to
it
get
gonna be
all
like
that
an app,
done.
like an API type thing?
I'm gonna stick with just a website for now, because I figure people can get on a website on their phone.
Now I have a little hands into the experience of like web design back in the day. For like 7 years of my life, I think I was like really addicted to the game StarCraft Brood Wars. To the point where I would like
It's a good game.
like, fuck yeah, dude. I was like, I'd be up all night, not doing anything, not sleeping for sure. I'd be wait for my parents to go to sleep, get on the dial-up modem, and go play Koreans on the other side of the world. But I wanted to be the best at it, so I would do it religiously over and over and over again. So I had a clan at one point, and so I taught myself HTML, like basic JavaScripting and whatever, and how to use Photoshop, and I have a variety of like tablets and art things or whatever, and a little bit of background in digital design. So if you need any help with like layouts and whatnot, I kind of have a pretty good eye for like things like symmetry or whatever. If you want to draw out some things on like paper of like this is a box here for this and this and this, I could definitely try to contribute or not. You don't have to hire me for it, obviously. If you just say, hey, help me out with this, right? I'm just letting you know what skill sets I have at my disposal. If you want to produce some kind of like,
if I talked to you like a couple months ago, that might have been more handy. But the guy I'm talking with right now is already like I've spent a month kind of working with him on like the basic design, which is like it's pretty straightforward. I'm kind of making sure that he gets like the buttons in the right places and all these little things and stuff.
Right.
So I have like a pretty good outline for the design so far. I'm like just about to transition to the like, okay, now I have to shell out like thousands of dollars to get you to code it. Thanks, man.
Shit. Well, maybe if you put any like social media post out there, I'll repost and whatnot to kind of get, maybe do like a crowd starter type thing for the idea as well, and like some more videos related to it.
Yeah.
It always feels like I've never actually monetized any of my music or asked for like any kind of donations. I don't even have a bank account, for God's sake. So, but like the offering system of just putting my music out there and being like, cool, what's up? If you like it, thanks for being a fan. Like, it gives my time I invested a little bit more value to it, I guess, in the long run. It really doesn't matter, but because I'll continue doing it regardless. But yeah, anyways, man, I'm gonna call it a night. I got some other shit I gotta take care of, but appreciate it, man. Thank you for being part of the #1 E-VOCATION podcast. Take care, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me around. I'll look forward to talking to you in the future.
Likewise, my man. Likewise. All right. Let's see.
Maybe we can do like a specific theme so
Next
that we
time.
can.
We'll hash it out more.
I'm
just kind of seeing if I get the technology and stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad it all worked out.
Right on, man. We'll talk soon, all right? Peace.
Sounds good. Till next time.